Hey y'all, I'm Sarah and this is Moonraker Makes. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I've ever knit. I taught myself to knit in 2024 and 2025 was my first full year of knitting. And then I've finished a couple objects in 2026 as well, so we're going to go through that today. I have all of my projects on a spreadsheet over here to the side, so if you see me glancing down, that's what I'm looking at is my iPad. But the first thing I ever knit, which I know, it was a pair of socks, and they're lace socks. This is the Petal Drop sock pattern by Florence Miller. When I was first learning to knit, I really knew that I would have the most success if I had a YouTube tutorial to follow, and she has a full YouTube and a pattern instruction that you can download. So I knit this in 5 different shades of Manos del Uruguay that I got from the Knitwit yarn shop in Portland, Maine. We were there for a wedding. One of my friends had been kind of bullying me to learn to knit for a while, so I picked up a book from, I think it was Quince & Co. from the Knitwit, and I got this. I have all my yarn cards on this kind of like little doodad so I can keep up with all the different colors and stuff that I've used over the past year. But these are the 5 shades that were included in that sock set. They're numbered. So this is 70% merino, and I think 30% silk. Some of it, yeah, and silk. Some of the stuff is rubbed off the label, but obviously not the best yarn to make a pair of socks with, but I didn't know that then. I know better now, but I love these. I love these. I wear these as house socks. I wear these with my rain boots. I have pink rain boots I wear these a lot with. I call them my Molly Weasley socks. They're really fun. They're a little bit too big for me, but I think this was a really nice project. And my friends told me I was absolutely crazy for doing a lacework project in a sock as my first project, but I think it was challenging enough that it kept me interested, kept me engaged, which was good for me. So a really good first project that I still wear all the time. So the next thing I knit was also, it was 2 objects actually. Both these yarns were also from the Knitwit yarn shop in Portland, Maine. And that was, I bought this Jaeger spun from Springville, Maine. As well as this really fuzzy green merino from Loopy Mango. That's like a bulky merino. My idea was that these 2 colors together would look kind of like a mossy log, which is how it turned out, so I was happy with that. So I knit 2. I got the Bedelia beanie, which is from the Grateful Sheep. I knit 2 versions of it. So I knit this version for my husband that has the the mohair and the wool held double in the top, and then just the wool in the bottom, so that he can kind of fold the brim over and have like a little shallow hat. This made a really thick fabric, so it's really good for when it's cold. And then I made myself a matching one with the remainder, but reverse, so the mohair and the wool are in the ear cuff, and then just the wool are in the top, and I added a little palm to mine. So I'm pretty pleased with how these turned out for kind of the first hat I ever made. Especially on mine, the mohair in the ear brim part, like the fold, not the fold over part, just the ear brim part, makes it really warm, which is good for me because my ears get really cold, and that's what I value in a hat. The next thing that I knit was the Matterhorn socks from Sandmade Knit. I knit these out of, I keep holding these to the wrong side. I knit these in Sorella Yarns sock base in the shade Bejeweled, and I put on the cuff one of her oopsies. So 2 years ago, I ordered a bunch of minis. And this is, you don't really know what colors they are because they're misdyes but these are on my blocking holders right now because I just washed them this morning, so they're still wet. So this lighter yarn, you can kind of see they're a little discolored on the bottom, but that's just because I wear them a lot. I wear them around the house. Again, I wear these in my rain boots. The gauge is a little off on these because I knit them with sock yarn, and I think the pattern actually calls for a DK, and this was fingering weight. So especially in the cables, the gauge is a little bit looser than you might expect it to be. I'm really happy with how these turned out. Like I said, I wear them all the time, but they have a little bit of gold sparkle in them. And they actually came with this other blue as the contrast color, which I didn't like as much, so I used the hot pink instead. Of what I've mentioned so far, the socks, the petal drop socks, are the only thing I actually finished in 2024. The 2 Bedelia beanies I started in 2024 around Christmas. I worked on them while I was with my husband's family for Christmas, and I finished them in 2025. And then the socks I started in 2024 and finished in 2025. The first finished object I had of 2025 that was started in 2025 was the Friday Sweater Baby by Petite Knit. I knit this in the size 2 to 4 months out of 1 strand of Knitting for Olive Merino in Marzipan, and I held it with another one of Sorella's sock mini oopsie colors that was I called it like a Tennessee orange. It's very vibrant. I was concerned about it bleeding into the marzipan, so before I kind of caked it up, I soaked it in vinegar and let it dry completely. Soaked it in diluted vinegar, water with a little bit of vinegar in it, to make sure that the dye was a little bit more set before I did it. I didn't have any issues with color bleeding, which was great. I made it for my little cousin, my newest cousin. She turns a year old in a couple months, so probably has outgrown it by now. But she was a little baby, so it took like a small, obviously all babies are little, but she was like extra small for her age. So it took her a little bit longer to actually be able to wear it. My husband gave our dog a jar of peanut butter, so on the Friday, it feels like a tongue twister. On the Friday Sweater Baby pattern, after I split for sleeves, I realized that the whole time in the upper yoke and shoulders, I had accidentally done moss stitch instead of broken rib. And I liked the broken rib, and I knew it would make it a little bit more stretchy. So I actually left it as moss stitch and then did the rest in the broken rib, because I thought it almost kind of looked intentional, like it was a different kind of yoke, and it's a baby knit. She loved it, she wears it, it fits her. So my next finished object was a pair of penny gloves by Petite Knit. I knit these in the color Dark Moose from Knitting for Olive in 1 strand of merino and 1 strand of mohair. I actually knit these for my husband, and I kind of made them so that they would match that green and brown beanie that I made him too. I really like the way the stitches look in this yarn combination. These are really warm. He loves having them even just like in his coat pockets to keep his hands warm when we are outside in the winter, even if he doesn't put them all the way on, just as like little hand warmers in there. I'm really, really pleased with the way that these turned out, and I have another pair for myself here in a second. My next finished object is also a Petite Knit pattern. Obviously, as a beginner knitter, it's really the most used patterns, right? They look good, they're simple, the instructions are pretty straightforward. So I did for my first sweater for myself, I knit the Monday sweater by Petite Knit. It's way too big to even fit in frame. So I think I knit this in whatever size is equivalent to a 2XL, but at some point, again, this was my first like real sweater. At some point, I think I ended up with the body stitch counts of like a 3XL. So this thing is huge on me, but I still wear it. It's really cozy. This is knit in Sorella's boucle yarn. in her winter tonal shades. This is the color Alpine. And it's this lovely kind of like dark bluish green. I think Pro-Con, I roughly sewed this strip of velvet ribbon into the back because I knit this so oversized. Even though this pattern has short rows in it, I genuinely can't tell which side's the front and which side's the back. So instead of putting in a tag, I put in kind of like a little, you know, neck backing in my sweater. I will say pro-cons for boucle being your first sweater choice. It is really difficult for the yarn choice for knitting this for the first time in such a large project, because there's the little curls. I have kind of the bumpies that are in boucle. When you're first learning to knit, that was kind of, as a beginner knitter, that was kind of difficult. However, it meant that when I made mistakes, they were really hard to see. Which is in the pro column for me. So there's lots of mistakes in this sweater, but you can't tell. I did not do helical knitting these are hand-dyed skeins. I did not do helical knitting because I did not know what that was when I started. And thankfully it turned out okay. Probably because of the boucle and like such a high texture garment, there were already a lot of color variations and it ended up okay. I started the Monday sweater on February 6th of 2025 and I cast it off in July of 2025, July 27th. So it took me what, March, April, May, June, July, 5 months to finish it. At the same time, I was also knitting the baby sweater. I kind of prioritized the baby sweater and ended up finishing it way before the Monday sweater because I wanted to make sure it got done before a baby shower. The next two finished objects I knit in 2025 were another pair of penny gloves that I knit in Sorella's Illicit Affairs from her second Eras Tour collection. And this is in one strand of her sport weight and one strand of the mohair. I bought a strand of the sport weight when she first did the Eras Tour release just because I really loved the color, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. When I settled on the penny gloves, I didn't have the mohair. When the color came back for Greatest Hits, I bought the matching mohair. And then I made these. I love them. They're very warm. It's really interesting just the difference the gauge made between the two penny gloves, like having mine in the sport weight and then my husband's in a fingering weight. Just the size difference between the two. My hands get really cold, so I like that mine are a little bit bigger. But I also knit, that only took, I think, maybe like 30 grams of the 100 gram skein. So with the other 70, I was trying to think of what I wanted and I landed on a matching hat because I couldn't get a full hat out of only 70 grams of the sport weight and the mohair that I had left. I opted to do kind of a hidden second color, and this is Dusty Purple Artichoke from Knitting for Olive. And this is the same. This is one strand of merino held with one strand of mohair. What I did is just on the inner brim fold that wasn't going to show, and then on the underside of the main body of the hat, I did it in the other color so it wasn't visible when it's folded. My friend who's knit a lot of Oslo hats, she also recommended that if you want to do this in the future, the pearl bump ridge that's on the inside here, my nose is itching because of all the mohair. She recommended that I do that in the main color because sometimes she was saying when she wears hers and her husband wears his, this will flip up a little bit and you can see just inside. So I really love this. I have a scarf right now that I'm knitting also in, you can see the color difference really well on camera, but in person, you can barely even tell that these are different colors. I'm knitting a Sophie shawl right now that matches in the purple artichoke color. And I'm waiting another skein of mohair because I was using the leftover mohairs from these projects. My next finished object of 2025 was the Fennel Seed cardigan by Florence Miller. I knit this so the pattern calls for one strand of heavyweight merino from Knitting for Olive with one strand of mohair held together. I opted for 2 strands of merino held with the mohair, just to give it a little bit more drape. I actually made swatches of both. I made a swatch with 2 strands of merino and mohair, one with heavy mohair and heavy merino and mohair, and then one that was merino, the compatible cashmere, and a mohair held together. I was trying to see if the softness with just one strand of cashmere in that mix would make a really big difference. It didn't, not enough to justify the cost. So I really love this pattern. I actually made this in this light gray color. I don't know if you guys remember seeing the video of a girl crying because someone shrunk her Cezanne sweater. I think her boyfriend shrunk her Cezanne sweater, and she was kind of putting it on and showing how shrunken it was, and it looked really good on her. So I made myself a sweater in a similar color. I knit this, I bought these buttons. These are abalone buttons that I got from a local fabric store here in Atlanta called Gail K Fabrics. I love these buttons. I discovered knitting this pattern that I already knew I had really long arms for my height. I'm 5'6", but my wingspan's about 6 feet. And I realized I need to account for that in yarn yardage in the future. I didn't have an issue with this pattern, but I did have to lengthen it twice. The actual pattern sleeve ended about here, so it was about 10 centimeters too short for me. It fit my husband perfectly, which made me feel like, you know, an albatross or something with giant arms. And then when I finished the cuff, in the pictures I have on Ravelry, the cuff was about here. And I wore it so much, you can kind of see on the pictures too, when I wore it, I would pull on the sleeves to like get them to come down over my hands a little bit more. That made the button placket in the front kind of pull apart. So I actually unpicked the Italian sewn bind off on the sleeves and added an extra, you can kind of see like the line where I did it, and added an extra like 8 centimeters of the cuff rib, and I'm so happy that I did that. It's so much more comfortable, and then it doesn't pull in the front. I could, for the life of me, not figure out how to do like a standard applied double knit button band. So what I did for this is I knit the button band separate and then I crocheted it on, which I was pretty happy with. So love this project. It's definitely my most worn knit. I actually was wearing it earlier today because it was chilly. So I knit the fennel seed cardigan pretty quickly. I started it in August 24th of 2025, and I finished it October 13th of 2025, because I was trying to get it done. I got married on August 11th of 2025, October 11th of 2025, and I wanted to wear it like the weekend, the couple days that we took off after the wedding. I wanted to be able to wear it. And it wasn't done yet, but it meant that kind of we had like a mini honeymoon. We got a cabin up in North Carolina, and my husband and I were so exhausted, and we could barely, like my throat was so tired I could barely speak just from talking to so many people over the course of the whole weekend. So I worked on the sweater like the whole time we were in the cabin for like 2 days, day and a half, and I did the whole button band and did the whole bind off. And so it's kind of special to me that way too. It's kind of like a wedding cardigan. The next project I want to talk about is in a project bag. It is a finished object, was a finished object, was, you'll see. I finished, this is the twist, let me say the right name, twist loop collar by Other Loops. My issue with this ended up being the ties. So I finished it in time to wear it to the Alabama Fiber Festival last year in Birmingham. I went with my grandmother. I really like the cables on it. I knew when I bought this yarn that I wanted to do a slip over, and this is like a tabard style where it's got ties on the side. You can see right now there are no ties. I knit this with Red Door Fibers DK in Soot Sprite from her Studio Ghibli collection. So you can see all the little multicolored neps in there, and this kind of charcoal blackish sort of yarn. I absolutely love it, and it blocked out so incredibly soft. My issue was that since the gauge was a little bit light, plus the yarn ended up being so soft, this pattern calls for an I-cord tie. The I-cord ties on this fabric were pulling so hard that it didn't look good on the sides. And so I thought maybe I'd try like kind of a double knit, almost like that Amy slipover pattern, like a big double knit, and it's doing the same thing. It's not making it any better. So I think my plans for this, even though I do like it, it's also, my problem with Other Loops patterns is she doesn't grade for larger bust sizes very well. I have a larger bust size, so this it's too open on the sides, basically. It's not what I wanted. So I think what I'm gonna do is, I thought about making another slip over, but I bought 500 grams of this, so 5 skeins, and I only used 2.5 on this. So what I think I'm gonna do is leave this as it is and use up all the rest of the caked yarn that I have. And I think this would make a really pretty Olga. And have this be the dark stripe. And then I was thinking Camellia Fibers Rainbow Sprinkles. Looks like it has really similar colored neps in it. And I think it would just look really pretty. And then I kind of have like an Oreo striped Olga, but with rainbow confetti neps in both colors. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to Flock this fall, and Camellia Fiber Co. is going to be there. So I hope she brings some rainbow sprinkles. I do live close to Nashville, so hopefully if I don't get any at Flock, I can get some maybe next year. The next project that I did in 2025 was a Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. I don't have it because I gifted it to my mother-in-law. I knit this out of some of the remnants of the purple artichoke merino and mohair from Knitting for Olive that I had left over from my Oslo hat. I actually started that Sophie scarf as part of a scarflet knit along that they were doing for the Alabama Fiber Festival last year. So I was knitting it actually while I was there, but I didn't get the chance to finish it. And when I did finish it, it was right before my in-laws were coming to visit, and I thought the color just looked so much like my mother-in-law, and she was actually like wearing a purple jacket when she came to visit, and she forgot a scarf, so it worked out pretty well. My next project was a 2x2 hat. This is a free pattern on Ravelry by Anne Gagnon. I actually used Sorella's Manhattan hat kit to do this. So this is one strand of her DK weight home line, like her commercially milled and dyed yarn in the shade Cinnamon Roll, and then it's held double with her Surrey Alpaca in her fall tonal colorway PSL, so Pumpkin Spice Latte. I really like this one because it's soft and warm. I made it extra, my skull cap's pretty shallow, so I made this one, it has a pretty big fold to it. The next pattern that I knit was the Damson Gin socks by Ambrose Smith. These are also in Sorella's sock yarn in the shade Apple Cider Donut. I really loved this colorway. I thought it would make a really cute pair of socks. I have the whole, it's got a little picot edge too. I have the whole collection of, this is from a set of sock patterns from Ambrose Smith that are all named after Agatha Christie. I specifically picked this pair of socks because I wanted to learn how to do the picot edge. Socks usually take me a while to knit because they're my favorite travel project because they're really small and they're also on teeny tiny needles. So I actually started the first sock last June and finished it in August, and then I cast on the second sock in August but didn't finish it until the end of November. I really like the pattern and the fit of these socks. They fit me really well and I wear them a lot. Next, like everyone else, last December I knit sailor slippers. I actually knit 2 pair. I knit a pair for myself and for my husband. My pair is in the color copper, and then is the orange part, and then cocoa bits for the cream, and the sole I did the color bark. I will say for both of these slippers, it took the entire skein to finish the sole. If I made any bigger size, I would have had to get another skein of the sole color. And I think actually, yeah, on this one, the sole, I ran out on my husband's and had to use a little bit of the lighter color. His I did in the color cobalt blue, light gray, and then I did the sole in dark gray. I really like these. I had to, when mine were wet, mine came out a little bit big, so I did an extra cycle of them in the dryer, and then once they were still a little bit damp, I like stuffed them with Whole Foods like paper grocery bags and let them sit to maintain the shape, and I think that's kind of helped the way they look. So we really like these. And these last two were cast on in 2025, but were finished in 2026. So these are my two first finished objects of 2026. So the first is the Winnie Top by Lily K. France. I'll insert a photo here too. I knit this out of I bought 3 skeins of Coast to Coast Sport Weight in the shade Cults, Curses, and Cannibalism. I really, really like this. I actually don't own anything red, and I got my color analysis done last year, which I will also insert a photo of, and it was so much red, and I genuinely don't own anything that's red. This is now the only thing I own that's red, and I love it. I love the way the yarn drapes. Figuring out the lace was a lot of fun. This was a little bit difficult at first, and I got it. Yeah, I'm just really pleased. This is the first like kind of transition weather sort of top. It's like a t-shirt tank, in between a t-shirt and a tank kind of vibe, which makes it perfect for the spring. I wore it actually all day yesterday. It was a little bit chilly, but still kind of sunny here in Atlanta, so it was nice to have. I'm really pleased with it. The only modification that I made to this pattern was the length. I think there were 3 decreases if I remember correctly. I can't remember, but I did all the decreases that were in the pattern, but it would have been significantly cropped. Like I think it would have been about right here, and I added some extra length, so it's like a full shirt. Finally, my most complicated project to date. I knit my husband the Dagmar Zipper Sweater Man by Petite Knit. I have it here. I just took this off the needles this past week. This was definitely an at-home project because the charts are more complicated than what I'm used to, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'll insert some photos too so you can see how it fits on him. The collar, I had to look up so many videos. The instructions just don't cut it. The only modification that I made to this was I followed a video. I found that, I'll find it again and I'll link it below, but I added a double knit facing on the inside of the zipper as well as the outside, and I'm really happy with that addition because it makes the zipper completely enclosed. The one thing that I should have done was not sew the zipper teeth so close to the edge. This is in Drops Nepal in the shade medium brown mix, I believe. And so I just sewed it a little too close, so sometimes some of the fuzz gets stuck in the zipper. It makes it difficult to zip and unzip. This is a YKK branded zipper, a antique brass zipper that I got off Wawak Sewing Supply. I just didn't like the way the zipper pull looked on the Petite Knit like branded ones. It's like long and skinny with a little ball at the end, and I didn't really like that. I like this much better. My plan is to make myself a matching Dagmar jacket with the same yarn, and maybe a matching dog sweater too. Our dog doesn't really need a sweater most of the time, but I think it'll be really cute for all of us to have matching sweaters. Thanks for joining me for everything that I've ever knit. 2026 will be my second full year of knitting, so I think my 2027, what I knit in 2026 video will be, maybe it'll have even more stuff. I don't know. If you like this video, I also have my spring and summer knit plans video that should be uploaded about the same time, as well as my very first knitting podcast. Give me a like and a follow if that's something that you're interested in, and I hope you all have a good day.